1 minute.
Start cleaning those tires up. Don't drain this time. Remember, they fan out down there, so protect that bottom. Sunday drive. All right, boss man. Face car's off. Be ready. Bud, be ready. Gas that bitch up. Ready. Green flag. Green.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Inside Pass. I am Randy Mill. Look who's back. Tom is back with us. Yay! Back from Batesville, Mississippi, and the National Go-Kart Championship, Indoor Championship. We'll talk about that in a little bit, because I'm interested to know how it all went. I'm surprised you're back so soon, because from what I understand, you probably could have still been racing at this point.
Yeah, thank God for time limits on features.
Exactly. So we're glad to have Tom back in the studio. I do want to say thanks to Peter Strada for filling in the last couple of weeks for Tom. Last week we were supposed to have Nick on, but Tom, Nick is very strong, and it took a lot of willpower to force him off of his iRacing wheel long enough to call in to a radio show.
Well, Nick keeps winning things.
I know.
And my understanding is that he just missed out on being Lewis Hamilton's replacement in F1 for this stretch. George Russell got the nod because he was there, and Nick's asking price was too high, and I heard the price of an autograph of Nick's has doubled now. So
yeah, it's going up in price.
Yeah,
so
sure. No doubt he's going to be asking for a bigger check from you for being on the show.
I'll pay him double from now on. We welcome Nick DeGroot on the Startmasters.com hotline, motorsport.com, and now iRacing aficionado. Buddy, how was your Thanksgiving, first of all?
Thanks, guys. Yeah, my Thanksgiving was great. It's a different year, to have Thanksgiving, but it all worked out well, and it still felt like the holiday in the end, and that was kind of what I was most worried about this year, the holidays when, lose their feeling. But no, it still felt like Thanksgiving. I'm looking forward to Christmas.
Yeah, it gets us closer to the end of this disastrous year. That's what I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah.
It's another day closer to ending this horrible year we've had. So we'll talk to Nick about his iRacing career here in a little bit. We only have an hour-long show, so I've got to save at least a little bit of time for that.
We've got to limit that.
We do have to limit that. But our top story, of course, those of you who follow racing on a more consistent basis, which I hope you do because you're watching our show right now, the Snowball Derby, the 53rd annual Snowball Derby over the weekend, this has become a very prestigious race for the late model world. A lot of great talent has come through and won this race. Kyle Busch and Eric Jones and you name it, and those guys have been in it and have won in it. Ty Majeski won on yesterday, for the 53rd edition of the race. This is like his fourth or fifth time being entered in the race, so it shows you how prestigious this race is to win.
Yes.
Because it took a guy with his talent that long to win. But some great guys in the field. Derek Thorne and Chase Elliott were both in the field. They finished with second and third. Kyle Busch was seventh. Chandler Smith was fourth. Grant Enfinger 8th, Derek Kraus 15th, and that's just some of the guys that were in that field. It was a pretty star-studded field, Tom, top to bottom. But as we've seen in years past, winning the Snowball Derby could usually lead to pretty good things in your racing career.
Well, it does, oftentimes. And, of course, let's be honest. Ty is one of the best, most talented race car drivers who is not in NASCAR's Big Three in the country. Period. End of discussion. And him winning the Snowball, if this does not, ring a bell in somebody's head that this boy needs to be in the top car, I don't know what will. But you're right. It's a very competitive field. It was this year. You had Chase and a bunch of the others had to run the last chance race because they missed in qualifying. One of the drivers you didn't mention was the driver who finished fifth, and it's because he's not commonly name-checked with the elites. But I'm just going to tell you, Caden Honeycutt was driving for Donnie Wilson this year, and he's at a third, a second, and a fifth in 3 appearances at Five Flags in that car. Caden is a 2-surface racer that can easily win on dirt or pavement, and that young man out of Texas is going places in this sport. He's going to be on Lead Lap Radio as we record this live on Monday. He's going to be on Lead Lap Radio tonight at 7 with us. And so on the Performance Motorsports Network, but there just is a ton of talent, and I think this is a big win for Ty, and it's a statement coming off his performance in the South Carolina 400 a couple of weeks ago at Florence Motor Speedway, where he also won that race. And I think he's proven he can win in the stock, he can win in the super late model. Somebody needs to just put him in a good ride in the top 3. Nick, I truly don't understand why he hasn't caught on yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. Name that's not talked about nearly enough. And just going back to Ty Majeski, a thought I had on him, he's been kind of on his back foot recently with what's happened with his NASCAR career and his truck ride.
Yeah.
This was, if there was any time for him to win the Snowball Derby, this was the time to remind everybody,
Agreed.
Hey, I'm here, I can wheel it, somebody put me in a car. And he beat 2 Cup champions in that race among many other great talents, and he's not the top-rated iRacer in the world for no reason. So I hope this leads to more opportunities for him, similar to how Eric Jones got opportunities when he won this race many years ago.
I thought you were the top-rated iRacer in the country.
No. Okay. Long way to go for that.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
Just top-rated IndyCar iRacer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've beaten Kyle Busch, so,
he's a top-rated iRacer named Nick DeGroot.
You and Ty do have something in common. You both beat Kyle Busch, so.
Yes.
You do.
There you go.
But going back to the prestigiousness of this race, we've seen Eric Jones has won it twice, and both of the times that he won it, he was on the inside pass right after that. So I tried to get Ty Majeski, but again, his going price is very high right now. But anyway, but if you go back to his time at Roush, obviously, the time he spent in the 60 car in the Xfinity Series, he was competitive, running up front, being close to winning races, but then sponsorship just, became a thing that, ultimately shut the team down, and him being out of a ride at Roush. He goes over to Nice and was in pretty good equipment. Doing, as best as you can do with that car, or with that truck rather. But with sponsorship, again, playing a role in not having a full-time ride and not being able to fund that truck on a full-time basis, somebody else came along with full ride, and so, Ty, again, was out of a ride. So it's unfortunate that, those things have happened to him over his career, but sometimes you have to have bad things happen in order for you to, have that determination to go out and prove that you really are a competitive driver, and all it takes is, a good top-quality ride, time, as you were saying, to get back on top of things and really prove that you belong, in a good elite ride in the top 3 series of NASCAR. He's won in everything he's been in. He's won late model races left and right, all the most prestigious races in the late model division. He's won, he's won all those races. So I think the Snowball Derby was one of the only races remaining he hadn't won yet. Now he has that on his belt. So, this is the time, as Nick said, for you to go out and prove that, the 2 rides that you lost were only because of sponsorship, not because of talent. And now he has an opportunity to go out there and even if it's an ARCA ride, he ran some ARCA races last year and was pretty competitive in those races too. So all it takes is one opportunity to go out and prove that you can, have a good quality ride and do something with it. And, you start at the bottom and work your way up again.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like Ty definitely has. Now his stock is. It's way up right now. So this would be the time if there's a company out there that's looking for a young driver to work with, or looking for a great opportunity to get into motorsports. That's the guy you want. He's just won 2 huge short track races. This one he beat a bunch of NASCAR racers. So now's the time to put him somewhere.
Which proves, obviously, it's not an easy race to win if you can go out and beat
Exactly.
Chase Elliott, the defending NASCAR champion, Kyle Busch, a former 2-time champion. So obviously the prestigiousness of the field, the people in the field, obviously works wonders. So I had on my Christmas list, some of the things that I wanted Santa to give me this year. One of the things that I wanted Santa to give me was AJ Allmendinger a full-time Xfinity Cup ride because I felt like he deserved it. Everybody looked at me like, you're crazy. AJ's not going to run full-time in Xfinity Series. I got my wish, Tom. He gets a full-time ride with Kaulig next year.
You got your wish.
I'm a happy boy.
And I think all of us are happy about that because what this sets up, Nick, is this sets up a 3-car Kaulig Racing assault on the 2021 NASCAR Xfinity Series Championship. And you've got Jeb Burton, Justin Haley, and A.J. Allmendinger. These are 3 drivers that are very aggressive. They're a whole lot of fun to kind of pay attention to because the personalities are there and the chemistry is there. This really, to me, now positions Kaulig Racing, if they even weren't this year, I think for next year, Kaulig Racing becomes, in my opinion, the favorite team to win the Owners' Championship, and surely one of the teams you're going to have to go through to win the Drivers' title.
Absolutely. I think they were part of the conversation in 2020. But they are going to be the conversation in 2021.
I think so, too.
I think we saw what Justin Haley was able to do this year. He won multiple races and got into the championship for it. He showed that you shouldn't underestimate him. You have A.J. Allmendinger, who's an absolute wheelman, and we have this influx of road courses, which plays right into his skill set. And then you have Jeb Burton, who is a solid driver that I'm so happy he's finally getting a full-time ride in a solid car. He's got something to prove, and I think he will. And I expect all 3 of those cars to be in victory lane. And should everything go right, I know the playoffs are unpredictable, but they could potentially make up 3/4 of the championship four with the caliber of drivers and cars they're going to have next year.
Think about this. If A.J. Allmendinger would have been eligible for points this year, if he had declared himself as points eligible, he already ran a race or won a race earlier in the year, which would have put him in the playoffs.
Right.
Then he goes out and wins the Roval, which would have put him in the championship 4 had he actually been points eligible. So he would have been one of the 4 drivers competing for the championship this year.
Yep.
Had he been points eligible.
And, again, we look at, I know that Austin Cindric's coming back. So I understand that Austin is now the favorite because he's the defending. Right? So obviously the road to the championship goes straight through Austin Cindric. I know that Gibbs, in my opinion at least, has improved itself. I know Noah Gregson's going to be really tough. Justin Allgaier's always there. But this team at Kaulig Racing has been gaining momentum now for 3 years, basically. And I think they're ready to explode. And so it's going to be a very, very intriguing series in the Xfinity Series next year.
And when you look at, the potential for a Cup Series charter in 2022, all 3 of those guys are going to be competing for, I want to be the guy that's going to run your Cup car for you. Which I'm pretty sure it's Haley's ride to lose, but the other 2 guys have proven that they can be top quality drivers. So I think all 3 of them are going to compete amongst themselves to see who, Matt Kaulig and Chris Rice are going to choose to be the Kaulig Cup driver going into 2022. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side. We'll talk more about A.J. Allmendinger, Xfinity. We got some Truck Series news for you, and we're going to break down some rookie stuff from 2020 and 2021. There's an interesting stat about the 2021 rookie class in the Cup Series. We'll be back with more at the Inside Pass right after this.
fans. This is Chris Wright. Thanks for listening to these guys. Man, what some great radio hosts. You're listening to the Inside Pass.
That could not have even come at a better time. Welcome back to the Inside Pass. We did not plan that whatsoever. That was just a chance thing. Chris Rice brings us back from a commercial break. Colleague Racing General Manager talked about AJ Allmendinger getting a full ride in the Xfinity Series for 2021. So excited about AJ Allmendinger's chances of doing great things with Colleague Racing. I know Chris is excited as well. And Chris has promised he'll come back on the show here at the beginning of the year.
He's promised he'll come into the show.
He did say that.
Get him into the show.
So interesting fact. I did some research a couple of weeks ago, and I realized because Silman just celebrated his 300th show over at Madness, and as exciting as that is, and how cool that is. We aren't far behind. We're going to be at 200 on March 1st, March 2nd, whenever that first show is in March. We'll be at our 200th show. So I have already texted Chris and said, look, you've been on 30 something episodes of this show over the last couple of years. I said you need to be on the 200th show, and he said, okay, you tell me when. So I'm trying to get him to come to the studio that night,
yes,
or day, whatever, to do the show. We'll see what happens. I've also reached out to DiBenedetto because he's been on some of the shows as well, and haven't heard back from him. But he's busy right now. He's lifting weights and working out, so I gotta let him have his space. But of the group of people. Our guest, Nick DeGroot, has been on all but like 3 shows, I think. Over the last, no, he started being on our show probably, I think, a year into the show or something like that. And I don't even remember. I'd have to go back and look and see the first show that Nick was on. But I don't think you were a part of motorsports.com for that far into getting that job before you actually started being on our show. And he was on. Periodically during the course of the time we were in Texas and we got here, he was on more frequently, and now he's on like once a month or so, helping us with stuff. But Nick, I told you a million times how much I appreciate everything you did. You were probably the first journalist outside of Tom and Jacob and people that work for Race Chaser that have agreed to come on and take part in something that you had no idea what it was, and now that we've kind of established ourselves over the last couple of years, you were always willing to come on, except for when you have iRacing practice and you have to miss a show, but that's understandable. You end up winning, so it was all for good. But in all seriousness, no, I pick on you when we laugh at your expense, but I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done to help this show grow, and we are super happy and super excited to have you as part of our kind of like part-time co-host, sometimes fill in, always wanting to be a guest on our show. It's much appreciated in all seriousness.
Well, thank you guys. I do love coming on this thing. It's always fun to talk to you about racing. And the thing I like about this show is just how laid back it is. It feels less like a radio show, more like we're all just sitting around and just talking racing, which I love. I love that kind of format.
That is what I've always strived for with Race Chaser is we're sitting on the back porch with a beverage and a bunch of rocking chairs, just talking racing and having a good time. And that's really, I'm thankful that you kind of caught on to that. And I know that's been Randy's deal all along, too, which is why, this show fit right into the Race Chaser mix. And we've got big plans for all the Race Chaser shows next year. We're just in the process of putting them together now. Yeah,
it's funny that Nick should mention, that's the vibe he gets from the show, because a funny story when I was in college, and the whole concept of the show started, and what's called the Fishbowl, which Tom knows all about because we talked about this story on the way home from the show one night. But the school that I went to, it's similar to what Melig did with Carolina School of Broadcasting, but it's American Broadcasting School, which was based out of Oklahoma City. Now they only have one campus, which is in Dallas, or Arlington. But the Fishbowl concept started from that, and then now there's a Fishbowl Radio Network, which stemmed from that school, which is also based in Arlington, which ironically enough is across the street from the school. But the whole concept of going into the professor's office and sitting down, and you basically have to pitch a show to the teacher or whatever, and tell him what you want your show to be. And I said, I have an idea for a sports show. I want it to be all about sports. And, we just want to sit around and talk sports. And he was like, okay, well, there's 90,000 shows, on the air that are sports related. How is yours going to be different? I said, because we're not talking about stats. We're not talking about, we're not breaking down anything. I said, this is a group of kids or a group of guys just sitting around just talking about sports in a casual way. So he's like, well, what's the concept? And I said, well, basically it's just, it's sports talk for a casual fan. That's exactly how I put it. And he's like, I like it. Let's do it. And that's where the Inside Pass started. So, we came up with the name of the show and started doing it in the Fishbowl. And to this day, it's the highest rated show that the station has had on that Fishbowl show.
Really?
And this was back in 2001. So, I mean, it's, it's carried its weight 21 years later, into now being a Race Chaser show. And, happy to have it part of the Race Chaser family. But that's exactly how I've modeled this show the entire time, is just 2 guys, 3 guys, 4 guys, how many people you got sitting around talking about racing in this respect, because we kind of took all the other sports out and started talking about motorsports, but it's basically just a bunch of guys sitting around talking about racing, and then in a casual way, so we don't break down the the wedge adjustments, and most people don't have any idea what you're talking about, but if you're just talking about general knowledge about racing, that's exactly what the show was about. So it's great that you should say that, Nick, because that's exactly what I was going for. So thank you for that. All right, back to some news now. Brett Moffitt announced that he's going to run he's going to run full time in the Our Motorsports Xfinity car, but he's going to run full time in the Nice truck for points. So he's going to double dip all year long for both series, but he's going to get points in the truck because you have to be points eligible for one of the 2 series. So he's going to run points in the truck series. So
yeah, he's next year's Ross Chastain.
Yes.
Except that he's going to do, from the start of the season, he's declaring. This is interesting to me, Nick, because honestly, I understood Ross Chastain wanting to sort of switch at midstream because he was on a hot streak with Nice and had a chance to win a championship, was not going to do that with JD Motorsports. So I kind of get the strategy there. I'm a little puzzled here with Brett Moffitt because Our Motorsports is growing, and I see the Xfinity Series as a higher step, obviously, than the Truck Series, and yet he's wanting to run both, and he's declaring for a Truck Series championship. To me, this sort of feels like he's saying he's sort of not as confident in what Our Motorsports can do next year as maybe he ought to be, Nick. What is your thought on this?
I was surprised by this news as well, and I think that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but Brett Moffitt is falling into this dangerous territory of people are just looking at him, oh, he's that truck regular.
Yes.
Instead of a guy that's trying to move up the ranks. And to have taken that step to Xfinity and be like, I'm running Xfinity, I'm running for Xfinity points, would have signaled to a lot of people, okay, he's still trying to move his way back to the Cup Series.
Yeah.
He's not content with being the next Matt Crafton, but this tells me otherwise. So he's running for the truck title with Nice, which is, of course, his prerogative. But, yeah, I'm very surprised. I thought he was going to be with Our Motorsports, go full-time. And they weren't going to win the championship, but they could have been like a Brandon Brown. They could have been a Ryan Sieg, which were drivers and teams that got a lot of attention this year because they were kind of the underdogs in the championship for the secondary division of NASCAR's National Series. So I think that would have been better move for him than to drive for Nice full-time in trucks, where, he might win a championship, but it's expected that he's going to be up there. Meanwhile, with Our Motorsports, he would get a lot more. They're going to get a lot more attention if they start poking their nose up there with the likes of the top teams in that series.
I see. To me, I'm watching Our Motorsports move into a much bigger space.
They're making advancements.
Yeah, they're making advancements. They're spending a lot of money to make that team what it needs to be to maybe be the next colleague, is kind of what I'm looking at here. And then, as you say, you're seeing the driver of that team say, well, I'm excited about that, but I'm still going to go back down to the trucks and run for Nice Motorsports, which has never won a Truck Series championship, I might add. And I'm going to declare for truck points. And so, again, I'm not trying to, insult Brett or in any way, disparage what he's doing. I just, as a strategy, I find it to be interesting that if you're Brett Moffitt, you wouldn't want to focus your full-time only effort on that team in the Xfinity Series and help it to get to the next level. So hopefully it helps you get back to the next level where I think most of us think he belongs, Randy. It's just, again, I saw what Ross Chastain was doing, and I could justify it. This one's kind of a head-scratcher for me.
Yeah, I think the key word in this is growth. I mean, I'm sure Our Motorsports probably went to Brett and said, hey, we want you to run this car full-time.
Yeah.
We're growing. Are you interested in it? And I'm sure at the time he was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's go for it. Let's build and grow together. And then Nice probably came, Al Nice probably called him up and said, hey, 45 truck is open. If you want to come drive, I'd love to have you on. And I'm sure Brett Moffitt probably thought, the Nice truck is already established. This is going to be my best chance to win win a truck championship and be competitive right off the bat. Ours going to take a little while of time to grow, and I'm not going to be as competitive right off the bat. So let me continue to do what I know I can do, which is win races and be competitive in a truck that's already established, while Our Motorsports gets their act together. And then, maybe in 2022, there'll be enough of, time lapsed or whatever that they can go, okay, now Our Motorsports is established. I can go run full-time in Xfinity Series and know that I'm going to be in competitive equipment. That's what I'm thinking. That he just decided, you know what, just until Our Motorsports gets everything settled down and gets their growth underway, I'm going to run a truck because I know I can win on a truck, and I know that Nice is a good quality ride, so that I'm not getting lost in the limelight, not being competitive in the Xfinity Series, running in 15th and 20th place as opposed to winning races. But
they weren't, though. They had top 5s, top 10s. I mean, Our Motorsports was...
That's true.
They were in the hunt. They kind of had enough ups and downs that it kept them out of the playoffs, but... it's just interesting, and if you're even close to right, I think what Nick's saying is, you kind of look at it and go, well, here's what you didn't mention just now, Randy. You said nothing about how does this get me to Cup. So it's almost as if, as Nick said, he's kind of resigned himself to the fact that maybe obviously if someone makes a phone call, right, but. Unless that happens, he's a little older. Maybe he just feels like this is the way he's got to do it to make the best living he can. And so, again, not saying there's anything wrong with it. Just, it was just an interesting situation, especially since Nice, while Ross made them a winning team, they aren't established as that.
Right.
I really want to see them get there, and I think certainly Brett can help them. And they've got a nice three-truck team for next year with Carson Hocevar and
Ryan Truex.
Ryan Truex. But like I said, just that was an interesting strategy and an interesting piece of news when it came out for me.
Well, that is interesting. Bill McAnally also announced that they're kind of doing what's called a BMR Academy. It's 40 races at 18 two-day shows in California, since the team is based on the West Coast. The drivers that win, like if you sign up for this, and you can. Me and Tom can sign up for it if we wanted to. I don't have that kind of money or time, but I could if I wanted to. Nick, you probably could because iRacing sometimes translates. But it's like $3,000. It's a lot of money to do it. But if you do it and you buy yourself in there and you run these 40 races or whatever, if you win during those 40 races, you get put into some sort of a drawing, which will, if your name is drawn, then you get to run the Bill McAnally truck at Phoenix for the championship weekend in November.
Yes, if you have $268,000 in your bank account that you just have no other use for, and you want to go racing. Apparently, here's how you can do it. I don't know, Nick. We've seen so many of these things and come and go in the past, and you start running numbers there, and you start looking at. How Bill's going to do this, and he's going to field this is another component. It's all BMR stuff. He's fielding all 14 or 16 of these cars or whatever. So the staff, he's going to have to add all of that.
Well, for $200,000 a car, I mean, you can pretty much pay.
If you book all the cars for 40, exactly. I mean, I don't know, Nick. What was your thought when you saw this?
I like what someone said on Twitter. They're like, I could run the whole USAC schedule for that amount of money.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept, but as for execution, I'm not too sure as a driver if that's the route I would go to try to get my chance.
Yeah, especially when, I love how, again, this feels gong showish.
Yeah.
Because even if you win one of the 40 races, okay, then you might get, if you're lucky and they pull your name out of the hat with the other 30 or 39 or however many there are that win, you might get the opportunity to truck. It's not even, they're doing it just by random chance. It appears anyway. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And how does NASCAR, what's interesting to me is that NASCAR is going to, I understand they're going to run road courses, they're going to run them, a couple of, bigger tracks or whatever, but this feels to me like it just doesn't feel right to me. NASCAR just saying blanket, we'll let that truck run. I would assume they're going to have to approve whoever the driver is, and so then even if
some random old kid from the bull ring that happens to win a race on a rainout, whatever, and then ends up getting the truck ride. But it's almost reminiscent of the Give Back Classic that KKM does at Millbridge, where it's like, well, we'll give you a ride for the Chili Bowl if you win. It's like, okay, but then you look at the entry list and it's like Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to win this race, but I'll give it a shot. Yeah. It's like, if you win, great, but this is what you got to do to win. So,
well, at least though, if they win, they know what the prize is.
Exactly. Yeah.
See,
exactly.
And that's the key. Is
it's not a chance to win the prize; it's the actual prize.
Yeah, I don't know. This just feels. I don't know if Bill really knows what he's getting himself into, Nick. I feel like, and Bill's a very smart guy, which is why this just sort of blew my mind. I think Bill's lost his mind, honestly, and I think he may regret doing this about a third of the way into the season.
If he was looking for some PR, some publicity, he's got that. So
no question.
Definitely, we have a wheel in the studio with 8 numbers on it. We'll just pick 8 drivers and put them on the wheel and spin it, and whoever wins gets the ride. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more of the Inside Pass right after this. Stick around.
I'm Chase Elliott, and you're listening to the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass here on WSIC. Thank you so much for watching and or listening to us. If you're streaming us, going down the road, listening to the radio. If you're going down the radio, there are some shady people in this world, but don't do that. That's not safe. If you missed any of our show, you can catch it on demand. Just go to your favorite podcasting websites all over the place, even Amazon Music. We are now on there as well. Just search Race Chaser Radio, and you will find them all right there. Lots of good quality shows. Peter Strada was on the last 2 weeks from TSJ 101. And he's going to be here a lot more in 2021, and
Yes.
we'll talk more about that probably next week.
No
Next
idea.
week, sadly, is going to be our last show of 2020 because we're going on holiday break, but we're going out with a bang, Tom, because I got Matt Tifft, and Tifft is going to be here to talk about live motorsports. Is that what it's called?
That's it's a big deal.
Live Fast Motorsports.
It's Live Fast.
Motorsports.
It's that's a big deal for Matt Tifft, and I'm excited to talk to him about that, and just to see how he's doing health wise too. I mean, that's I think, Nick, that Matt Tifft is one of those drivers that, at least for now, we unfortunately have not seen what he's truly capable of, because about the time he kind of got to Cup and started to get comfortable, his health failed him again, and so but he's a terrific young man, and I think this is a really interesting opportunity for him and BJ McLeod to make an impact at a time when the Cup Series is converting to the new style car and making the business model possible for a team like this to actually be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame we never got to see Matt Tifft at his full potential, as you said, but seeing him as part of this team, I think is going to be very interesting and kind of a team everybody's sleeping on. I think everybody's looking at these other teams that are coming to the sport and paying attention to them a lot more than Tift's situation, but I truly believe that is going to be a team to watch in the coming years. I think they are committed. I think they are going to build up this team and probably surprise a few people if everything goes to plan, of course. But yeah, Matt Tifft is not just a good driver; he's a very smart individual, and I think having him as part of this team is going to raise it to the next level.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things happening in 2021, not only with new teams coming into the sport, but a rookie class, which now only has one person for right now. But the schedule changes and everything that NASCAR has done, which we'll talk more about as we get into 2021. But there's a lot of good stuff coming up on all sides of the NASCAR motorsports landscape as we head into 2021. I want to take some time and talk to Nick about the iRacing thing. We pick on Nick all the time about his iRacing career. Sometimes I tend to forget he's a journalist because it's all about iRacing all the time, and I tend to forget he still works for motorsport.com. But Nick, in all seriousness, now you've done something that is kind of inspiring to a lot of people who follow you from your journalism days. But I mean, the fact that you kind of decided I'm going to do this iRacing thing and have turned it into almost as much of a career as it is for a hobby for you, because you've gone out and really done some amazing things and won some very prestigious races, running the Monday Night Madness stuff with Seth and Noah and everybody else that's part of our Race Chaser family. But again, we pick on you all the time, but you actually do have a very good career going in that, and I've noticed you've won some very prestigious races in the last few weeks or so. So tell us a little bit about the Monday Night Madness league and what's going on over there with iRacing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, see, the thing with me, when I first joined iRacing, it was just about having fun, and it still is to an extent, but it was just about having fun, doing the races I wanted to do, and that's how I was for like almost 5 years. Just went and did everything. I did IndyCar, NASCAR, road courses, rallycross, anything you can think of, I was trying. And after 5 years of doing that, I started to realize, okay, I'm kind of quick in some of these. And this year when the pandemic hit, and I had no work, I had nothing to do, just sitting around, I'm like, maybe I'll join a league for the first time. So I joined the Elite Racing League, which is an incredible league, and that just kind of sent me down the rabbit hole, and I'm looking around for other leagues. I ended up with the Monday Night Racing League, which is a great group of guys and some cool big names in it as well. Some other leagues as well, Dark Horse Racing League, Velocity. I could go on and on that I've joined, but these leagues, I've noticed, I'm like, I've been missing out because they have competition that the fixed races, for the most part, don't. Because the fixed races, the official races, are much more randomized, and it's just about who joins, iRating, and they can be messy sometimes. But these league races are much more organized, much more officiated, and it really helps you raise yourself to the next level. And I started to realize, okay, I can do some stuff here. I can win actual prizes. And earlier this year, when I won the Big Green Egg, I went and looked at it. I'm like, I joined iRacing for fun, and here there's this grill sitting in front of me, and it made me think, what else can I get? It sounds crazy, but I'm like, all right, how far can we take this? And we kept going, and this league keeps growing, and I'm always on the lookout for what's next, what else is out there, and I'm no Nick Ottinger. I'm no Ty Majeski. I'm no William Brown. I'll tell you that right now. And there's plenty of IndyCar drivers that kick my butt too on this server. But I'm someone that's committed a lot of time to it. Someone that used to be driving with a broken plastic pedal that I duct taped with a piece of cardboard, and now I have these 3 screens and this actual rig. So yeah, it took a lot of commitment, a lot of time, and anybody else that wants to do that's all I have to say.
So
time, practice, laps, and you can get to the same level.
So Nick realized that he was a good iRacer because he was doing lap times on iRacing and realized, hey, I'm pretty quick at this. Yeah. I'm going to do iRacing. I can point at the moon, but that doesn't make me an astronaut. So,
well, but here's what you missed though in that very nice.
I realize Nick is greedy because he wanted a grill and now he wants more.
Well,
so I know I've learned that too.
The key, yeah, he's wondering how many other appliances can I win if I keep going.
When do I get the new house?
Yeah, when the refrigerator, stove,
exactly.
coffee maker. But what you missed was the part where Nick said, I used to be a back marker team, and then I went out and spent Hendrick money and got all the good stuff, and now look at me
right,
go.
Exactly. So,
yeah, exactly.
He's now an elitist.
All of the racers out there, but that doesn't mean anything because when NASCAR did their iRacing thing during the pandemic shutdown, they always showed Timmy Hill's setup, and he had basically the one that was clamped to your desk.
Yeah.
So rigs don't matter. I mean, Denny Hamlin has a full size car in his living room. Yeah. That's an iRacing rig. It doesn't really matter how your setup is. It just matters how you learn from it and deal with it. But that's awesome, Nick, that you were able to do that. And on the flip side, I mean, obviously you're still a journalist for motorsport.com. You write amazing articles, and that's one of the things that I admire about you is your ability to kind of turn on and off the iRacing switch, when you need to, and put pen to paper and write good articles, and you always do a great job. And we always go to motorsport.com for news and analysis, and I read your articles every time you write articles, and so you're an amazing journalist as much as you're an amazing iRacer, and that's why you've come to be a huge factor in our show. So thank you for the articles, and congratulations on all your success with iRacing too.
Absolutely, thank you guys. You guys give me much more accolades than I deserve. I'll just say that right now. You really build me up here. Well, and I swear I'm not paying them.
What's refreshing about this is that, we used to have Dr. Jack Miller, who would run IndyCar, right? He was the flying dentist. And now we have the flying journalist with Nick DeGroot. And oh, by the way, as long as I brought up Dr. Jack Miller's name, his son is running, Jack William Miller is running the road to Indy right now.
Oh, nice.
That young man I think he's 17, is one of the funniest, most entertaining social media personalities. Go find Jack Miller on Instagram and follow him because honestly, he can drive. He's going to be I think everything that his dad wished he could be, but of course never had the resources. Jack's going to kind of end up in a situation, I think, young Jack, where he gets all the benefits. But just a fun kid to follow and working really hard. He's a triathlete, runs triathlons, that kind of thing, and does so. It's just fun to. It's fun to see the generational thing, especially from somebody like Dr. Jack, who was not one of the elite drivers. This is a fun story that he's got a kid that actually had enough interest in it, and he's trying to give him what he never had. Right. So that's fun.
Speaking of open wheel, before we go to break, I want to get both of y'all's thoughts because neither one of y'all were here last week on the Romain Grosjean wreck from the F1 race at Bahrain last Sunday. Looking at the crash and seeing how spectacular that was, and the fact that he was able to walk away from it. And Tom, your thoughts, and then Nick will get yours.
It's a miracle, thank God. That was by the grace of God that he got up out of that car. We haven't got enough time for me to rant about the idea of any tracker series at this point in 2020 using Armco barriers. And they did put tires in front of that barrier for this last race. And it's a shame that it takes something like that to sort of, make the bell go off in somebody's head. But
luckily, it was just tires that we had to replace.
Thank God. Right. And I it's amazing his recovery. The burns on his hands or whatever haven't stopped. He's back playing ping pong. He was with the team trying to help Pietro Fittipaldi. Nick, I mean, Roman showed his character through this. Just an amazing story, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is an incredible individual. And I love how the community's just rallied around him after this. But, one thing you said is you called it a miracle. And I've noticed a lot of people on social media, especially there's some drivers who take offense to using that word for this situation because they think it takes away from all the safety advancements. And I just want to clear it up. It's not taking away from the safety advances at all. The fire suits, the crew on the site there, the halo, all absolutely saved his life. But the chances there that he did not get trapped in the Armco when he got twisted up, that he didn't get knocked unconscious, that everything went right and worked perfectly, that is a miracle. I'll just say that right now. And he's lucky to be alive, and you can tell by his interviews he knows it.
I think drivers need to remember who the creator is. Yeah. Anyone who would say that forgets, kind of how the whole thing works. But they are right in the sense if it weren't for that hoop, which we all call the flip flop because it's kind of what it looks like. If it weren't for the hoop that they installed, this would have been a much worse outcome that we.
Yeah, we've seen this wreck before without the halo.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side. More NASCAR racing news when we come back. The Inside Pass on WSAC next.
This is Justin Lofton, and you're listening to the best guys on the radio, the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass here on WSIC. Randy Miller, Tom Baker back with us from Batesville, Mississippi. So how was the indoor go-kart? You had like 70,000 entries or something.
Not quite, but it felt like it. 1,504 was the official count. 1,504 entries from across the country, which was the largest event. The largest turnout that we've had since the event was in Tunica, Mississippi, back in the earlier 2000s before it moved to Batesville. And even 10-time World of Outlaw champion Donnie Schatz got in on the act. His two nieces are now in our Junior 2 classes. They're I think 11 or 12. And Amelia and Layla Eisenschenker, their names, and they both won, I think, multiple features over the weekend. They're really good. And Donnie got himself a cart and entered 3 classes and actually qualified for one. And you say, well, that's not good. Well, you got to consider we had several classes with 50-plus entries, and those were a lot of the ones he was in, and we start 20. That's it. 10 out of the first round, 10 out of the second round of group qualifying, and that's it. And so he got to run one feature, and I think that probably gave him a whole new perspective, so he'll be an even better crew chief for his two nieces now. And so yeah, it was a great time. We loved being on Pit Road TV and Speed Sport TV, and we've got the MAV TV show coming up early next year that we're putting together. So had a great time. 30th annual O'Reilly Auto Parts National Indoor Kart Championship.
Nice. And Nick, just so you know, we don't always just pick on you, because during the break we were picking on Ikea. And Ikea's our awesome producer sitting in the studio. She's drawing, and she's very, very, very good, much more so than me or Tom could admit. But she's like, no, I'm not drawing. It's just doodling. I'm like, that is not doodling. That is a master. That's like Da Vinci type of art over there. And so I was like, that's like Nick saying, oh, I'm not an iRacer. I just dabble a little bit, even though you've clearly won several races in the championship. So I just so you know, it's like, you know, he's like, I don't want to call that show. I get picked on all the time, but you're not the only one that gets picked on. Like, he gets picked on too, but
good to hear.
Much better artwork than anything I could do. I couldn't even draw water out of a well, much less draw anything on pen or paper. So before we do, I wanted to talk about this story that actually came from motorsport.com. That one of Nick's colleagues, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
You start the sentence, I'll finish.
I can't even get. See, look, I can't even get the bell to work. There we go. But it was William Byron talking about his desire to be a consistent threat and constant threat in 2021 on a weekly basis, and basically just talked about how, in his early conversations with his new crew chief, Rudy Fugle, the conversations, Tom, are different now than they were 6 years ago, because 6 years ago, when he talked to Rudy, it was all about, well, this is what Kyle did, this is what, you know, so-and-so did. Now it's like, this is what I did, or this is what we did last year, you know, whatever. And those conversations are a little bit more focused on what William Byron wants in the car, not what everybody else has for William to try in his car.
Yeah, and Rudy's at a level that's a new height for him, right? Going from, you know, the leader of the KBM truck team to a part of Hendrick Motorsports at the Cup level. Rudy is one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to race cars and doing his job, and I am 100% convinced that Rudy is exactly what William Byron needs at a time when I think Hendrick Motorsports, Nick, is about to really up their game. You got Kyle Larson coming in. Of course, Alex Bowman now, job security with the Ally sponsorship and the 48 number. And Chase Elliott kind of won the championship. And, you know, you're adding road courses, which are basically Chase Elliott benefit races anymore. So there's 6 of those next year for him to go try to win. So I feel like this is the perfect marriage at the perfect time for William Byron, and also the perfect move for Rudy Fugle, Nick, to be able to get into this organization at a time when, as I say, I feel like they're ready to really come out and play again in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I said this on the show before, actually, that Rudy Fugle is the perfect person to put atop the pit box for William Byron in 2021. He not only has he worked with William Byron before and had great success, he's worked with a lot of young drivers, and he's had great success with almost all of them. So I think this was a great idea to bring him in and pair him back with William Byron, who's now a lot more experienced than the last time they worked together. Like you were saying, he has all of these races that he can pull from now and be like, this is what I did here, this is what I did wrong, this is what I think I did right, this is what I think we could do next. And I believe that this pairing, and people are going to think it's a slight against Shaq and Knaus. It's not. This pairing will do far better than the Byron-Knaus pairing did, because I just never thought that was a perfect fit. I think the role Shaq Knaus is in now is exactly where he needs to be to strengthen the entire organization. But I think as a crew chief and a driver, they didn't work as well as these two are going to work, and I think you're going to see that in a big way in 2021.
Yeah, you know, the funny thing about Shaq and Knaus is, you know, obviously him and Jimmy won 7 championships together. And it's funny because, you know, sometimes they feel like, okay, well, we'll just put another driver with Chad and have the same success. But that just shows you how deep a crew chief driver combination really can be. Because as smart as Chad Knaus is, you know, him and William Byron never gelled. So they were never able. He did win a race this year at Talladega, I believe. But they just never were able to, you know, get everything back together the way that Chad and Jimmy
I think
did.
Chad elevated Williams'
skill
set, performance, knowledge, all of that. I think Chad did what Chad needed to do. But ultimately, I think Chad was what Chad's going to do now, being, you know, competition director, whatever they call that, supervisor, whatever. Yeah, he's going to be able to now do what Chad does best, which is really micromanage all four of the teams and make sure that they're getting what they need, the cars and all of that, the resources. I think Chad was closer to the end of his career than the beginning with William, and so there wasn't going to be the time for them to really gel. I don't think it's so much that they couldn't have, Nick, but I think Rudy comes in as somebody who's a long-term solution for William, who Williams worked with before and whose style he obviously was comfortable with. And Williams now more knowledgeable, and Rudy's kind of the guy coming in, and he's going to have Chad and all the other crew chiefs to lean on. It's scary what could be ahead for Hendrick Motorsports in 21.
Agreed. I think not only Byron will get stronger next year from this crew chief, but all four of those cars are going to get stronger because you're going to have Chad Knaus in the background, as you said, micromanaging everything.
Yep, that is for sure. Nick, we always appreciate you being on. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that great stuff, and I'm sure we will talk to you many, many more times in 2021.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, guys. Enjoy the holidays.
Same to
you as well. Guys, we will have Matt Tifft on next week to talk about live motorsports, and we will be back Thursday with Motorsports Madness. For Tom Baker, I'm Randy Miller. Have a great week. See you next week on our season finale of 2020. Have a great week, everyone.